Hi, folks. Welcome back. Dennis Vitoza, also known as Noodles. And today we're going to be talking about something you've probably seen all over the internet. Yes, yours truly has been a trending topic on Twitter for the last 24 hours, and it largely involves a debate I did yesterday on Sean Kelly's show, Digital Social Hour in Las Vegas. See, I was out in Las Vegas shooting the show, and I ended up debating somebody I had actually never heard of before. His name is Yoseph Haddad, and let's just say things went straight off the rails during that debate. But before we get into what happened, I want to give you a little background on Yoseph, because most of you, like myself, may have absolutely no idea who Yoseph Haddad is. Yoseph Haddad is an Israeli Arab journalist, activist, and prominent international advocate for Israel. He was born in Haifa and raised in Nazareth. He is a Christian Israeli Arab who volunteered to serve in the Golani Brigade of the Israel Defense Forces, where he was wounded during the Second Lebanon War in 2006. During his service in the IDF, as you'll hear in a moment, he reached the position of commander, and as we'll discuss, he did quite a few questionable things during his time in that seat. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's talk about some of his social media presence, because Hadad didn't just go viral because of this specific interaction with me. Hadad has been a pro-Israel activist, and I would call him a propagandist, traveling around the world shilling this Israeli propaganda for the last 2.5 years at least. He's particularly known in this space for confrontations, for being a provocateur, and for seeking out situations where people who politically oppose him may assault him so that he may later present himself as a victim. Now, I know that if you already know the context of the interaction between myself and Yosef, you may be a little skeptical of that characterization, but I'm going to show you evidence from throughout the years of Yosef himself seeking out confrontations with people who politically oppose him and then presenting himself as a victim afterward. Here's one example from outside the pro-Palestine protests at Columbia University in April 2024. Yosef, so-called Israeli journalist and citizen, came to America to agitate outside of one of our universities, and this is what happened.
Kill yourself! Kill yourself! Commit suicide! Commit suicide! Run in traffic! Jump off a building!
You can do whatever the fuck you want. I'm not going anywhere. I will keep revealing the truth about all of you.
Why are you so close? What up? What up?
Stop!
What you doing, nigga?
What's up, little bitch? No. This one first. This guy. Go. Get him out of here. Get him.
No, he's a liar! They got you, my man. What happened?
You know I didn't touch you, bitch ass nigga. You know I didn't touch you, nigga. You know I didn't touch you, bitch ass nigga. You know I didn't fucking touch you, bitch ass nigga.
Yo. Free throws. Bro, turn me around. You good. I got it.
You saw that shit?
I got it.
Stop, guys.
Bring him to the front precinct. Get his identity. Get his identity. He's a liar. He's supposed to accuse somebody.
Already swung on somebody.
So as you can see, that's not really normal behavior. Yosef clearly went there to agitate. It's already a volatile situation because he politically opposes what everybody there stands for. Not that he doesn't have a freedom guaranteed under the Constitution to go there and share those views, but look at the way he's doing it. He's clearly there to instigate. He's telling people to fuck off. He's deliberately escalating the situation. And the greatest irony of all of this is that he then falsely accuses a wrong person of punching him. He did get punched in the face, but if you remember the original video, the person who punches him is a man wearing a red and white head covering, a black sweater, and a red backpack. The man he ends up getting arrested is wearing a black face mask, a red and white head covering, and a neon sweater. Needless to say, he accused the wrong person, and that guy was arrested for no reason whatsoever. And this is how you know you're dealing with a sick individual here. It's not like he gets injured and starts seeking medical help or looking for a way to de-escalate the situation. Instead, he runs like a little girl over to the police going, hey, It's him, pointing to the wrong guy. Then he's just sitting there displaying the blood in his mouth and showing off the injury. Why? Because he's there to heighten tensions. He's not there to solve the problem. He's not there to bring people together. He's there to deepen the divide. He's there to be a pro-Israel agitator in a situation where people are demonstrating against Israel. And that context is important because his MO hasn't really changed over the years. Time has gone by, but Yosef's MO remains the same. The next clip that we're about to watch from later in 2024 is a great example of that because he didn't just do this in New York. Yoseph Haddad also berated Palestinian students at Tel Aviv University and called for them to be expelled. Here's what he did.
ايه مشكل حقيقي سيبكوا يلا خاتم لقديم بين نفوذ تل ابيب لاخو الجنين منافقين منافقين
This guy's a clear agitator. He's just going around literally getting in students' faces unnecessarily and screaming at them. I mean, that's unacceptable behavior. This guy's 41 years old and he's out here screaming in the faces of kids who are just going to school. Needless to say, if he were there to debate them in good faith, that would be one thing, but he's clearly not. He's telling these kids to leave. He's trying to get them expelled and telling them to leave the place where they're going to study. Again, he's not there to bring people together. He's there to tear them apart. He's there strictly on behalf of Israel. And this is how you have to understand his profile. He's an Arab operating as part of this Israeli influence campaign, and that identity is useful to the message, as you'll see in a moment. One of the things he talks about with great pride is that he's an Arab Christian who rose through the ranks of the IDF to become a commander. And that matters because when you're dealing with propaganda, you want a diversity of identity. Because once you have that diversity of identity, you suddenly have all of these different ways of delivering the same talking points and combating exclusionary rhetoric simply through the representation of the identity delivering the propaganda. That's the usefulness of Yoseph Haddad in this scenario. We see this elsewhere as well when Ben Shapiro gets a black person to become part of the Daily Wire. That's effectively what he's doing. He's insulating the conservative argument within a specific identity so that argument can be made outside the limitations imposed on other identities. In fact, it allows whoever is disseminating the propaganda to subvert the opposing side's talking points simply by virtue of the vessel delivering the narrative. Anyway, all that being said, Yosef recently went viral for a speech he gave at Oxford, and this is a clip that he himself shared on his social media pages from that talk. It's part of a much longer speech, but this is what he chose to share. And I think it tells you a lot about his character and how he sees his role within this propaganda environment that he inhabits.
I decided to volunteer and serve in the IDF. Many people ask me, why did you choose to take that decision and actually serve in the IDF? I said, guys, it's in the initials. It's the IDF, it's not the JDF. And IDF means Israeli Defense Forces are not Jewish Defense Forces. And when Hamas and Hezbollah and the Iranian regime attack Israel, they attack all the citizens of Israel. And when the IDF protects Israel, the IDF protects all the citizens of Israel, whether you want it or not. Thank you very much. I'm very proud of that shame. Thank you very much. I'm really proud of that shame. On the 4th of October 2003, which is a month and a half before my beginning of the service, a Palestinian female suicide bomber entered the Maxim restaurant in Haifa and blew up that restaurant. It's a restaurant co-owned by Arabs and Jews. People from Arabs and Jews are eating there, working there. The devastating result of that terror attack, 21 Israelis were murdered, Arabs and Jews. Arabs and Jews were killed because of that Palestinian terrorists. From that moment, I realized one thing. My decision wasn't 100%. It became 1,000,000%. And I knew that serving in the IDF is not only the right thing, but it's the most moral thing to protect my society. And you can shout shame as much as you want. As I told you, I am so proud in every decision that I took to protect my country, to protect my society, and to protect my people from terrorist organizations like Hamas, who time after time kill Arabs and Jews. After a year, I become a commander. I, as an Arab, was a commander over Jewish soldiers in the IDF. Take that, apartheid. You're talking about apartheid. I gave orders to Jewish soldiers to do exactly what an Arab IDF soldiers said to do. And then, as I said, you keep shouting shame. I'm proud of that, proud of that, proud of that, proud of that. And I was injured 4 days before ceasefire. At that time when I was injured badly, and knowing that Hezbollah is going to target the rescue mission, the Jewish soldiers there, they should have thrown me to the garbage, according to him. But instead of that, they put me on a stretcher, lifted it up, backed up with another 4 Jewish soldiers, run 3 kilometers under fire when an RPG goes above your head, and literally bringing me to safety, saving my life. They didn't have to do that according to any thesis that you think about. While you bullshitting about what's going on, I felt it. I smelled it. I tasted it. I saw it. I heard it. It happened to me.
Now, there are a few facts he dropped in that speech that are important. You heard him say that he was a commander in the IDF. He volunteered. He was injured, as we discussed earlier. And another interesting thing he mentioned is that he's proud of every action he took while at the IDF. He didn't really go into detail about what those actions were, but I actually got the chance to ask him about them later on when we were debating here in the United States. But before we get into that, though, I need to set the table a little bit more, because at this debate on Sean Kelly's Digital Social Hour, this guy had already spent pretty much 3 hours debating other people before he got to me. I think there were about 10 other people who debated him. I was one of the last. I was supposed to be the last, but somebody else ended up going up after me. And needless to say, for 3 hours, this man was basically screaming at everybody he spoke to. He wasn't speaking cordially. He wasn't speaking with any level of civility. He was screaming at the people across from him, badgering them, verbally abusing them. And I want to be specific about what I mean here, because I'm not speaking hyperbolically. Under criminal law, verbal conduct can potentially fall under several categories depending on the circumstances: assault by threat, terroristic or criminal threats, harassment, disorderly conduct, or breach of the peace. I'm not saying he was doing the first two. What I'm talking about is the harassment, verbal abuse, and disorderly conduct. The way he was directing this behavior at the people debating him was just extraordinary to witness. The level of disrespect is something I have never witnessed myself firsthand until I saw this man talking to my fellow Americans about why we should support Israel unconditionally. In fact, one of the topics that kept coming up was whether the IDF is justified in bombing schools. And across the board, whenever somebody challenged him on this, he verbally abused them in a way that was relatively unsettling. He called them Nazis. He cursed them out. At certain points, he refused to even look people in the face and would only address the host of the show, who was sitting off to the side. He would scream and curse at people sitting in the background. Overall, it was an extremely toxic and abusive environment. He would very often engage in what I'm describing as fighting words, inherently inflammatory statements likely to provoke an immediate violent reaction from the average person hearing them. He was name-calling and directly provoking people. He would do this to men who were much bigger than him. In fact, right before me, he debated a Green Beret. Not only did he call the Green Beret a Nazi, he verbally abused them in several other ways. And look, if we're talking about civil law, there's also the concept of intentional infliction of emotional distress involving extreme and outrageous conduct, intentionally or recklessly causing severe emotional distress. Now, I'm not saying that's what I personally experienced. I'm telling you what the atmosphere was like for those 3 hours. People were dealing with extreme, outrageous verbal conduct, and they were flabbergasted by it. It got to the point where most people refused to shake his hand at the end of their debates. Eventually, people were refusing to shake his hand before they even sat down because they had already watched his conduct and seen how outrageous he was acting. And again, keep in mind how he was screaming during that Oxford talk. Remember people shouting shame and him responding with something to the effect of, "I love that shame." That was essentially his conduct the entire time he was debating these folks at this podcast. Now, as I mentioned, I was one of the last people to debate him, and I actually shook his hand. He was surprised by that. He even took note of it and says something like, wow, finally, somebody who's cordial. And I'm like, yeah, fine, whatever. So I sit down and he lays out his claim that Israel was not built on stolen Palestinian land. I ask him to explain why he believes that, and he immediately deflects into a red herring, saying he doesn't have to explain it, and that, in fact, I should define what a Palestinian is. Folks, I've been debating for a minute. I am going to stick to the claim. I want to understand why you believe your claim. I want to understand your thought process. I'm not going to get diverted into all these side trails about defining what a Palestinian is when you haven't even explained your claim. I even invited him, Yoseph, to give me a definition of Palestinian, and he didn't want to talk. He just wanted to berate me. And that's literally what happened for the first few minutes. I kept trying to hold him to his claim, and he kept berating me. At one point, he got upset and started talking to the host almost exclusively. And I'm like, okay, well, just focus on me, buddy. We're the ones debating. Then he starts berating the son of Palestinian refugees who was sitting directly behind me. And that goes on for several minutes. The son of the Palestinian refugees eventually provides a definition of Palestinians, but that doesn't seem to calm this guy down. He then diverts into fighting words. And I'm sitting there just thinking like, are you serious? He's basically saying, yeah, this guy is a pussy. He's not going to do anything. He's a Palestinian, and starts calling me a Palestinian for whatever reason. Folks, I'm an American citizen. I don't think I have to explain that to you. And I have every right to be skeptical about how my government is using our money to fund these sorts of operations abroad, because I don't want America involved in an endless foreign conflict. That's my position. You guys already know this. I'm an anti-interventionist. Anyway, at one point in the debate, I get sick of going around in circles with this guy and having him scream at me and other people in the studio. So I heard him mention earlier at another debate that he was an IDF soldier. So I asked him, how many people did you kill in the IDF? And he retreats a little bit. I guess the question caught him off guard because he says, I never killed anybody. And I'm like, okay, well, you were in the Israeli military and you didn't kill anybody? How's that possible? What role did you have in the military? He then tells me, well, I was a commander. And I say, okay, as a commander, you didn't kill anybody? How is that possible? And he says, well, not directly. And I'm like, oh, okay, so you did kill people. Did you give orders to kill people? And if I remember this accurately, he said yes, or something to that effect. So then I start going down this line of questioning about how far these strikes that he commanded went. And he's tacitly confirming these things. He never directly says, no, I never did that. In fact, a lot of the times, he would just look down, pause for a second, and then try to deflect. Finally, I asked him whether he had ordered a strike on a school. Again, he puts his head down, avoids answering, and deflects. And at that moment, I'm like, in my head, oh man, this guy definitely ordered a bomb on a school. So I start laying into him, and he gets pissed off. And that escalates the language he was using even further, because now he's not just using what I would describe as fighting words. Now he has an emotional reason to push it even further. He's pissed off, and that's when things escalate to the next level. At which point I'm like, okay, bet. I get up, take off my jacket, walk over, and put my arm around his shoulder. And from there, things went off the rails. Now, I'm going to show you the supercut that was posted by his wife, Emily Schrader, the well-known Israeli propagandist. This was recorded on her phone while she was sitting off to the side, so you'll see me get up and take off my jacket, but understand that this is a cut. There's a lot of context missing. I'm not going to share Sean Kelly's full video because it's Sean Kelly's video, but I'll add the relevant context wherever it's missing. Sean has the entire podcast recorded, and my friends were also recording from the side. So I have the majority of the interaction recorded uncut if it ever needs to be presented. But for now, I'm actually going to use the videos Yoseph has been sharing on his own social media because I'd rather address their narrative as they're presenting it. He and his little minions have been making these supercuts and, in my view, misrepresenting what actually happened. So we're going to go through their own material and address it as we go. Anyway, Yoseph shared this roughly 2-minute video filmed by his wife on his social media. This is what it shows. Oh.
Let's do it right now. Let's solve this.
There's no fighting, guys. There's no fighting.
Let's solve this. Let's solve it.
Sit down, please.
Let's do it. This genocidal asshole. So he's just sitting here monologuing for 4.5 hours.
You understand? They can actually do something about it. But in fact, he can
See, fighting words. You do something about it.
I'm right next to you. I'm right next to you.
That's the thing. He can't touch me. He can't do shit.
I can do whatever the hell I want.
He can't do shit.
Here. What's going on? How you doing?
Dude, guys, seriously, let's not be.
He's like a foot shorter than me. You're a fucking bitch. You're a fucking bitch. You kill children. You fuck up. You genocidal fucking freak. You genocidal fucking freak. Shut the fuck up.
You can't do shit, my brother.
Dude, stop it.
You wanna play?
Hey.
You can't do shit, my brother.
Please don't.
You're gonna
His hands was wrong.
He wants shit. I'll do shit.
His stuff in his hands was wrong.
So when someone
You need a big man to do your work, you fucking loser. The same way you bump kids, you fucking loser.
Rocks. That's your husband. That's your husband.
I can't do shit. You need two people to hold me back, you fucking loser. You bump kids, and you need two people to hold me back. Be a man.
I ain't trying to fight you, idiot.
Stop. Come on. That's your husband, right? Stop. That's your husband. That's it. Look at this guy. If he hits me. You too. Stop. Hey. Stop. Listen. You saw the elbow. Stop. You fucking Stop. He attacked you. Stop. You do something. Stop. He didn't attack you. Stop, brother. Stop.
You want more? You want fucking more?
Violent Israelis don't know how to do anything but fight and cause damage. It's a violent Israeli. All they do is attack you.
Now, we're going to get into my conduct in a second because I want to talk at length about my thoughts on this entire situation. But there's one thing I want to point out that Pally_Lebo was able to capture in this video. As you can see here, Yoseph walks over to the planter, grabs rocks, puts them between his fingers, apparently so he could use them as some kind of makeshift brass knuckles when he hit me, which is not only cowardly, but potentially very significant when you're talking about who is preparing to use force and how. And then, as you can see, when I'm pinned down by two people, that's when he actually engages and punches me in the stomach. I'm literally being held down by two people, and that's when this guy decides to come over and punch me. Now, as far as what happened inside the studio, there's obviously going to become a question of who did what and when. I grabbed his hand. He's the one who pulls me in and tries to slam my head on the table. Then he goes to throw a punch and holds it back. I have my own opinion about what happened, and obviously I was walking a very fine line in that situation, but people are going to watch the footage and interpret it differently. The internet is already extremely divided over who instigated this and who didn't. I believe he was instigating based on everything that happened beforehand. I believe this was the outcome he wanted because, as we've seen, this is the kind of stuff he does. He's a rage baiter. He's a provocateur. He goes around the world instigating confrontations and then paints himself as a victim afterwards. That's his whole shtick. And ironically, that's exactly the narrative that the Nick Matows and the E.L. Yacobis of the world, the propagandists, the paid Israeli propagandists, immediately started running with. At no point did I claim to be the victim. In fact, I'm bigger than this guy. Objectively, I could break him in half if he didn't have his security guard there, which, by the way, he did. He had an entire IDF security detail, and inside the studio, he had 3 people stopping me. Outside, there were 2 people holding me down while this guy punched me in the stomach. And by the way, the punch felt like a flick. It was actually pretty comical. I barely even felt it. I saw him get up afterward and basically thought, wait, did this guy just try to punch me? So all of that makes it pretty pathetic, but not particularly surprising that the very next day, he posts this on X. He says, I filed a police report against my attacker. He will soon be arrested, and I hope he's prosecuted here in the United States. People like him have one place behind bars. Okay, give it a shot, buddy. I think you're wasting the resources of Las Vegas police because under Nevada law, assault includes unlawfully attempting to use physical force against somebody or intentionally putting somebody in reasonable apprehension of immediate bodily harm, while battery is the willful and unlawful use of force or violence against another person. So this isn't as simple as him declaring himself the victim and therefore everybody else accepting his version of events. The actual sequence matters. Who initiated what conduct, what each person reasonably perceived, what force was used in response, and whether any subsequent force was defensive or retaliatory. There's video of this interaction, including him pulling me toward the table, appearing to start throwing a punch, and later punching me while I'm being restrained. So police actually look at all of this. They're going to have to evaluate the entire encounter, not a 2-minute propaganda edit, and not Yosef declaring himself on X so that the Ziobots can support him. And I think that's what this is really about. He's trying to use this for attention and paint himself as a victim. You have to remember, folks, this guy's a provocateur. He's a rage baiter. He goes all around the world doing this. We saw him at Tel Aviv. We saw him in New York City. We saw him at Oxford. Now we see him in Las Vegas, constantly agitating people because this is how he makes money. This is the part of the whole divide and conquer Israeli propaganda thing. It's unfortunate. This guy is a little pipsqueak, and honestly, he's one of the most disgusting people I have ever met. And look, here's my assessment of the situation. In my opinion, this guy is a war monster. He is a monster. Based on the conversation I had with him and everything I heard him say that day on the podcast, I believe he's a war criminal who is now being used for Israeli propaganda. He should be behind bars. And looking back on my interaction with him, it genuinely felt like looking into the face of evil because, in my view, this man is a monster. When I asked whether he ordered strikes on schools, he put his head down, avoided answering, and deflected. I interpreted that as a tacit admission. And then you go back to what he himself said at Oxford. He said, "I do not regret a single thing I did for the IDF." To me, you don't make a statement like that unless there are things you know most people would regret doing in service of a military and would most likely question you doing. And by the way, we've seen numerous controversies involving the IDF over the last few years. We've seen people at the Knesset arguing over the treatment of alleged sexual abuse of Palestinian prisoners. We've seen Ben Gvir, who, by the way, shared this story, Yosef's story, on Twitter and called him a king. And, the same Ben Gvir who just a couple of months ago was calling for the full extermination and genocide of Lebanon. So this is what we're dealing with here, folks. In my view, this guy is a propaganda agent. And unfortunately, I fell for the bait. This really isn't my proudest moment. I'm really not that proud of it. Honestly, I'm embarrassed that it devolved into that. In a situation like this, cooler heads have to prevail, and I fell for the rage bait. I should hold myself to a higher standard because I love this country. I'm passionate about our people. I'm passionate about Americans and protecting Americans. And as a Catholic, I believe in the universal dignity of human life. I believe every human being has dignity. So to sit across from somebody I viewed as so vile, listening to him just justify the killing of children, and then hearing what I interpreted as tacit admissions about his participation in military strikes, all of that affected me. Driving back to LA afterward, I thought to myself, man, if I had been face to face with one of the Nazis convicted in Nuremberg, what would I have done? Obviously, that's a hypothetical moral question, but in that moment, I felt like I was looking into the face of sheer evil. I felt like this man had done great evil and that he was continuing to do evil by traveling around the world sowing division of this sort. I believe this man is truly profoundly evil. He's a monster. But all that being said, I've had several conversations with friends since then, and we're all Christians. And one thing we discussed was turning the other cheek. Was it really for me in that moment to take the action I took? And in the moment, I felt justified. I did. But looking back on it, after all the emotions cooled, I don't think I did myself or anybody else any favors by engaging physically the way that I did. Verbally, I think I could have been more effective too, but the more egregious mistake was allowing it to become physical. I should have turned the other cheek. I should have allowed vengeance to belong to God because ultimately vengeance is his. Instead, I fell for the bait and I allowed myself to become part of this divisive propaganda, this trolls running around and sowing. And that's one of the things that pisses me off the most. Now I'm fodder for the exact divisive rhetoric being spun by this deeply demonic individual. He calls himself a Christian, but I saw absolutely nothing Christian about the way he treated everybody in that room. And look, guys, if you've been following me for a while, you know I don't take the fight home. I go in, I match people's energy, and I lock in. And once I'm locked in, it's in God's hands. I've been praying for God to give me guidance and clarity about what my mission was in this and whether I actually saw through his purpose. And in my heart, I know I probably could have been more effective for God if I had shown more restraint. And if I had simply allowed Yosef to expose himself through his own behavior. But I guess this is where our culture is right now. At some point, you have to stop and realize that maybe sometimes you're the problem. Maybe you are the problem. And maybe you have to find a different way to approach this sort of issue. That being said, this guy can go straight to fucking hell. He is one of the worst, most vile human beings I've ever met. Yoseph Haddad, King Azule suggested that we fight on his boxing card. If that works, I would love to catch you in a boxing ring. Legal fight. We fight each other. You're a big man. Or so you try to convince everybody with your big words. Let's settle it like gentlemen in the ring. Boxing gloves, okay? Let's do it. Let's run it back. No security guards. Anyway, all jokes aside, I am praying for all of us, okay? I'm praying for my enemies as well. It's a skill I've had to work on for most of my life. I'm a very confrontational person. I don't run away from conflict. If you come after me or anybody I love, I will come after you with a force of God backed by St. Michael the Archangel. Michael, my confirmation name. And that's a saint who spoke to me directly and chose me. So there's all that. Anyway, folks, you tell me what you think in the comments down below. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoy this video. Share it with a friend if you think they'll enjoy it too. I'll see you again in the next one. Take care. Peace.